Senior researcher Vrexel pressed her 4 tentacles against the cold observation glass and watched the humans below. They were doing it again. The strange behavior that had confused Federation scientists for 3 standard cycles now played out in the recreation area of Station Harmony 7. A human female had fallen during a game they called basketball. She clutched her ankle and made sounds of pain. Within seconds, 4 other humans surrounded her. They touched her shoulders. They spoke soft words. One human male actually carried her to a bench while another ran to get medical supplies. Vrexel's assistant, a young Keithrani named Drix, clicked his mandibles in confusion. They waste so much time on one injured member. Our efficiency protocols say she should wait for proper medical staff. Write it down, Vrexel said. All of it. The council wants to understand this behavior. They call it pack bonding. Drix made notes on his datapad. But senior researcher, why does the council care about such inefficient social patterns? Vrexel turned her large amber eyes toward her assistant. Because in the Battle of Nexus Point, 17 humans held a defensive position against 200 crawl warriors for 6 days. They should have retreated. Logic said they should retreat, but they stayed because 3 of their wounded could not move. They risked many to save few, Drix said slowly. Yes, and they won. The crawl did not understand why the humans would not leave. It confused them. It made them afraid. And when our relief forces arrived, those 17 humans had killed 143 crawl warriors. Drix stopped writing. His compound eyes widened. That is not possible. I saw the reports myself. The Council believes this pack bonding is why humans are so effective in combat and cooperation. If we can understand it, perhaps we can use it to strengthen the Federation. Below them, the injured human was now laughing. Her friends had drawn pictures on her medical wrap. Pictures that Vrexel could not understand, but that clearly made the injured one happy. Schedule an interview, Vrexel said. I want to speak with the human ambassador directly. 3 days later, Vrexel sat across from Ambassador David Chen in a meeting room designed for multi-species comfort. The human was average-sized for his kind, with dark hair turning gray at the temples and brown eyes that seemed to notice everything. Thank you for meeting with me, Ambassador, Vrexel said through her translator device. Please call me David. He smiled, showing his teeth in the human gesture of friendliness that still made Vrexel slightly nervous. I understand you want to study how humans form bonds. Yes, the Federation Council has approved a formal research program. We wish to understand the human ability to create loyalty quickly and maintain it even in extreme situations. David leaned back in his chair. That's a big topic. Where do you want to start? Vrexel activated her datapad. We have observed that humans form attachments not only to each other, but to animals, machines, and even objects. In your military records, we found accounts of soldiers nomming their weapons and vehicles. Some soldiers risked their lives to retrieve damaged equipment. Why? David nodded slowly. You want to understand why Private Martinez ran into enemy fire to save a robot. Yes. The robot had no strategic value. Its programming could be transferred to a new chassis. Yet Private Martinez suffered severe injuries to carry it to safety. David was quiet for a moment. Her name is Sarah, and the robot's name was Buddy. He had been with her unit for 2 years. He played music when they were sad. He told bad jokes. Once, he threw himself on a grenade to protect 3 soldiers. His chassis was damaged, but he survived. After that, the whole unit treated him like family. But he is a machine, Vrexel said carefully. To you, maybe. To Sarah and her unit, Buddy was their friend. He had personality. He cared about them in his own way. When she saw him get hit by enemy fire, she didn't think about logic. She just knew she couldn't leave him behind. Vrexel made notes. This is what we do not understand. Your species forms these bonds with anything. Other humans, yes, this makes biological sense for social creatures. But machines, animals that provide no resources, even plants we have observed. David laughed softly. Have you ever had a pet Vrexel? No, the Vraxian people do not keep companion animals. Let me tell you about my dog when I was young. His name was Max. He was old when I was born and he died when I was 8 years old. I cried for a week. My parents tried to explain that he was just a dog, that we could get another one. But Max wasn't just a dog to me. He was my friend. He slept at the foot of my bed. He protected me from my nightmares. He loved me completely without any conditions. Unconditional attachment, Vrexel said, writing quickly. Yes, and when you experience that kind of love, you want to give it back. You want to protect the ones who protect you. It becomes part of who you are. But this seems like a weakness, Vrexel said. If enemies capture someone you love, they can control you. David's eyes grew harder. You might think so, but here's what really happens. When you threaten someone a human loves, you don't gain control. You gain an enemy who will never stop, never surrender, and never forgive. There's an old saying on Earth, there is nothing more dangerous than someone with nothing left to lose, but I think there's something even more dangerous. What is that? Someone with everything to protect. Vrexel felt a strange chill move through her body. She had read the combat reports. She had seen what humans could do when they were defending their pack. Now, sitting across from this soft-spoken ambassador, she began to understand why the Crawl feared them. I would like to expand this research, she said. I want to observe human groups directly. Families, military units, work teams. The Council believes understanding pack bonding could help us create stronger alliances between Federation species. David smiled again, and this time Vrexel saw something warm in it. I think that's a wonderful idea. When do you want to start? Immediately, if possible. Then let me introduce you to my staff. Fair warning, though. He stood and gestured toward the door. We've already started to bond with you, Vrexel. You might find yourself part of our pack before this research is finished. Vrexel did not understand what he meant. She would learn. The research station on Earth was not what Vrexel expected. She had imagined cold laboratories and controlled environments. Instead, she found herself in a place humans called a community center in a city called Portland. Why are we here? Drix asked as they walked through the front doors. This does not look like a research facility. Ambassador Chen said this would show us pack bonding in its natural state, Vrexel replied. Inside, the building was filled with noise and movement. Human children ran past them, chasing each other and laughing. Elderly humans sat at tables playing games with cards and small tiles. In one corner, a group practiced fighting moves in perfect unison, their bodies moving like water. A young human female approached them. She had bright red hair and more freckles than Vrexel had ever seen on a human face. You must be the Federation researchers. I'm Katie. David told me you were coming. Welcome to the Portland Community Center. Thank you, Vrexel said. We are here to observe human social bonding. Katie laughed. Well, you came to the right place. This is where our whole neighborhood comes together. We have after-school programs for kids, exercise classes for adults, social time for seniors, support groups for people going through hard times. Pretty much everything that makes a community a community. What is your role here? Drix asked. I run the youth programs, but honestly, everyone here does a little bit of everything. When Mrs. Patterson's husband died last year, we all took turns bringing her food and keeping her company. When the Chen family lost their house in a fire, we organized donations and temporary housing. That's just what you do. Vrexel found this confusing. But these people are not your family. They are not related to you by blood. Katie shrugged. So what? Family isn't just about blood. These people are my neighbors. We look out for each other. Over the next several hours, Vrexel and Drix observed dozens of interactions. They watched an elderly human teach a young child to play chess, both of them focused and happy. They saw teenagers helping to cook food for a dinner that would feed anyone who was hungry. They observed a support group for humans struggling with addiction, where participants hugged each other and shared painful stories. "This makes no evolutionary sense," Drix whispered to Vrexel. "These individuals are not related. Helping each other provides no genetic advantage. By our understanding of natural selection, this behavior should not exist." "Perhaps our understanding is incomplete," Vrexel replied thoughtfully. A small human child approached them. He could not have been more than 5 years old, with dark skin and curious eyes. "Are you an alien?" he asked Vrexel. "Yes, I am from a planet called Vraxis Prime." "Cool." The child held up a colorful drawing. "I made this for you. It's a picture of a rainbow. Do you have rainbows on your planet?" Vrexel took the drawing carefully. "We have light phenomena, but I do not think they look like this." "That's okay. Now you have one." The child smiled and ran away to join his friends. Vrexel stared at the drawing. A complete stranger, a young creature who knew nothing about her, had created something beautiful and given it to her freely. She felt a strange warmth in her chest that she did not recognize. "Senior researcher," Drix said, "are you all right?" "I am fine." Vrexel carefully placed the drawing in her research bag. "I believe I am beginning to understand what Ambassador Chen meant about becoming part of the pack." The research continued for several weeks. Vrexel and Drix visited military bases, hospitals, schools, and family homes. Everywhere they went, they saw the same patterns repeated in endless variations. Humans formed bonds quickly and defended them fiercely. At a fire station, they watched firefighters risk their lives to save people they had never met. After each rescue, the survivors hugged their rescuers and wept with gratitude. The firefighters comforted them like family. At a children's hospital, they observed doctors and nurses who worked 16-hour shifts because they could not bear to leave their young patients. One nurse had been at the same hospital for 30 years. She remembered every child she had ever treated. When Vrexel asked why she stayed, the nurse said simply, "They need me." At a military base, they interviewed soldiers about their units. Every soldier spoke of their fellow fighters not as colleagues but as brothers and sisters. "I would die for any of them," a young sergeant told Vrexel. "Not because I'm ordered to, because they're my family." "This is remarkable," Drix said one evening as they reviewed their data. "The humans have essentially evolved to treat strangers as family. Their pack is not limited by blood or territory. Anyone can become pack." "Yes," Vrexel agreed. "And that is why they are so effective as a species. They can cooperate with anyone who earns their trust. Their loyalty is powerful because it is chosen, not forced." "But how do they choose?" Drix asked. "What determines who becomes pack?" Vrexel thought about all the interviews they had conducted. Shared experience, shared values, time spent together, acts of kindness and sacrifice. It is not any single thing but a combination of many things. The humans call it building a relationship. And once someone is pack, they remain pack. Not always. Trust can be broken, but humans are remarkably forgiving. They want to maintain their bonds. They will work hard to repair relationships that are damaged. Drix set down his datapad. "Senior researcher, I must confess something." "What is it?" "When we began this research, I thought the humans were foolish. Their behavior seemed inefficient and emotional, but now I am not sure. I believe their pack bonding may be the secret to their success as a species, and I find myself admiring them." Vrexel made a soft sound of agreement. "I understand. I feel the same way. The Council was wise to order this research. If we can learn from humans, perhaps we can strengthen the Federation." "But can other species learn to bond like humans do?" This was the central question. Vrexel did not know the answer yet, but she was determined to find it. The next morning, Ambassador Chen contacted them with an invitation. "There's something I want you to see," he said. "It might be the most important part of your research." "What is it?" Vrexel asked. "A funeral." Vrexel and Drix exchanged uncertain looks. They had studied human death rituals but had never witnessed one directly. It seemed like a very private thing. "I know it sounds strange," David continued, "but if you want to understand pack bonding, you need to see how humans respond when they lose someone from the pack. Trust me, this will teach you more than 100 interviews." They agreed to attend. The funeral was for an old soldier named George Williams. He had served in many wars and had lived to be 93 years old. According to David, George had been a legend in his community, a man who had helped hundreds of people throughout his long life. The service was held in a small church. Vrexel was surprised to see how many people attended. The building could hold perhaps 200, but over 300 people crowded inside and outside, watching through windows and listening through speakers. David led Vrexel and Drix to seats near the back. "Watch," he whispered. "Watch and listen." One by one, people stood to speak about George Williams. They told stories of his kindness, his courage, his humor. An elderly woman described how George had helped her family when they first came to America as refugees. A young man explained that George had been his mentor, teaching him carpentry and life lessons. A middle-aged woman wept as she recalled how George had saved her father's life in a war 60 years ago. The common theme in every story was connection. George Williams had touched all of these lives personally. He had remembered birthdays and visited hospitals and attended graduations. He had given small gifts and shared meals and offered advice when asked. "He was everyone's grandfather," David whispered, "even if they weren't related by blood." At the end of the service, the crowd sang together. It was a song about love and loss and memory. Vrexel did not know the words, but she felt their meaning. All around her, humans were crying and holding each other. Strangers embraced strangers. The grief was shared, and somehow that sharing made it easier to bear. After the service, people gathered outside the church. They shared food and stories and laughter. The sadness was still present, but it was mixed with something warmer. Celebration, perhaps. Gratitude for having known George Williams. A very old man approached Vrexel. He was thin and bent with age, but his eyes were bright and clear. "You're one of the alien researchers, aren't you?" "Yes, sir, I am Vrexel." "I'm Henry. George was my best friend for 70 years. Henry's voice trembled slightly. "We met in the army when we were 19, just kids, really. We went through hell together, and we came out the other side as brothers." "I am sorry for your loss," Vrexel said. Henry smiled through his tears. "Thank you, but you know what? George wouldn't want us to be too sad. He'd want us to take care of each other the way he always did. That's what pack is about, right? Even when one member is gone, the pack continues. We carry their memory. We honor their legacy. We keep loving each other." "How do you continue without him?" Henry thought for a moment. "When someone you love dies, they don't really leave you. They live on in your heart, in your memories, in the way they changed you. George made me a better person. Every good thing I do for the rest of my life will be because of what he taught me. In that way, he's still with me. He always will be." Vrexel felt that strange warmth in her chest again. She was beginning to recognize it now. It was the feeling of connection, the feeling of being part of something larger than herself. "Thank you for sharing this with me," she said to Henry. "Thank you for caring enough to learn about us," Henry replied. He placed a gentle hand on Vrexel's tentacle. The touch was brief but meaningful. "You know, I think you'd make a good friend, Vrexel. George would have liked you." After the funeral, Vrexel sat quietly in the transport vehicle for a long time. Drix waited patiently, saying nothing. Finally, Vrexel spoke. "I think I understand now. The pack bonding is not a weakness. It is their greatest strength. It allows them to build connections across all boundaries, species, culture, history. None of it matters. If you earn their trust and care about them in return, you become family." "It is beautiful," Drix agreed softly. "Yes, and I believe it could change the Federation forever." 6 months after beginning her research, Vrexel stood before the Galactic Federation Council to present her findings. The Great Chamber was filled with representatives from over 100 species. All of them watched her with varying degrees of interest and skepticism. "Honored council members," Vrexel began, "I come before you to share what I have learned about human-pack bonding. I believe it is the most significant discovery in the history of interspecies relations." The Keithrani High Speaker clicked his mandibles impatiently. "That is quite a claim, researcher. We have been observing humans for only 10 cycles. They are a young species. What could they possibly teach the Federation?" "With respect, High Speaker, they have much to teach us. May I proceed with my presentation?" The council agreed, and Vrexel began explaining what she had observed. She showed videos of humans caring for injured strangers. She played recordings of soldiers describing their love for fallen comrades. She shared the drawing the child had given her, which she still carried in her research bag. "Humans form bonds instinctively," she explained. "They do not require elaborate rituals or formal agreements. Simple acts of kindness create connection. Shared experiences build trust. And once someone is considered pack, humans will do almost anything to protect them." The Vraxian representative raised a tentacle. "This sounds like a primitive social adaptation. How is it relevant to a spacefaring civilization?" "Because pack bonding allows humans to cooperate with anyone, other species, artificial intelligences, even beings very different from themselves. They do not require genetic similarity or cultural compatibility. They simply need to experience kindness and reciprocity." Vrexel activated a display showing diplomatic records. "In the 70 cycles since first contact, humans have formed stable alliances with 43 species. This is far more than any other Federation member in the same time period. Their ambassadors consistently receive high approval ratings from alien governments. Their military units integrate seamlessly with non-human forces. Their colonies welcome settlers from any species who wish to join." "This is true," the Telleran ambassador acknowledged. "When my world suffered the Great Plague, human doctors came to help. They worked themselves to exhaustion treating our sick. They had no obligation to do so. We had no alliance at the time. But they came anyway because they said it was the right thing to do. After that, we joined the Federation specifically to be closer to humanity." Similar testimonies came from other species. The Dorini spoke of human engineers who had rebuilt their damaged cities. The Keth described human negotiators who had helped end a civil war. The Vrax admitted that human teachers had transformed their educational system. "The pattern is consistent," Vrexel said. "Humans give freely, expecting nothing in return. But this generosity creates loyalty. Species that receive human kindness feel compelled to reciprocate. The result is strong alliances built on genuine affection rather than strategic calculation." The High Speaker leaned forward. "But surely this behavior can be exploited. If humans bond so easily, they must be vulnerable to manipulation." "That is what I thought initially," Vrexel admitted. "But I was wrong. Human-pack bonding is not blind loyalty. It is reciprocal. If someone betrays a human's trust, they do not simply accept it. They respond with devastating effectiveness. The Crawl learned this at Nexus Point. They thought human attachment to their wounded was weakness. Instead, it motivated the humans to fight with terrifying determination." She showed the battle records from Nexus Point. The Council watched in silence as the numbers appeared on screen. 17 humans against 200 Crawl, 6 days of fighting, 143 enemy dead. 0 humans lost, though many were wounded. "The humans would not abandon their injured," Vrexel explained. "They knew retreat would mean leaving those soldiers behind, so they stayed, they fought, and they won. This is the power of pack bonding. It transforms individuals into something greater. A pack is not just a group. It is a family, and humans will do anything for family. The Telluran ambassador spoke again. If I may, I would like to share an observation. When we first encountered humans, we found them confusing. They were too emotional, too attached, too quick to offer friendship. We thought this was weakness. We were wrong. Their capacity for love is not weakness. It is their greatest weapon and their most valuable gift. They share it freely, and in doing so, they make allies of strangers and family of foreigners. Vrexil nodded gratefully at the support. This brings me to my recommendation for the Council. I propose that we study human pack bonding not merely as a curiosity, but as a model for Federation-wide reform. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The High Speaker raised his forelimb for silence. Explain what you mean, researcher. Currently, the Federation operates on formal treaties and calculated obligations. Species cooperate because it is strategically beneficial, but such alliances are fragile. When circumstances change, treaties are broken. We have seen this many times in our history. She changed the display to show a new set of data. Human alliances are different. They are built on personal relationships. Ambassadors become friends. Trade partners become family. When challenges arise, humans do not calculate costs and benefits. They ask how they can help their friends. This approach creates stability that no treaty can match. But how can this be taught? The Keithrani representative asked. My species does not naturally form such bonds. We are solitary by nature. We cooperate for survival, not affection. I asked the same question, Vrexil replied, and I discovered something remarkable. Pack bonding can be learned. It is not purely instinctive. Humans teach it to each other from birth. They teach it to their children, to their communities, even to their artificial intelligences. The capacity for connection exists in all sentient beings. Humans have simply developed methods for nurturing and expressing it. She outlined a series of proposed programs, exchange initiatives that would send Federation citizens to live in human communities, training for diplomats based on human relationship-building techniques, joint projects designed to create shared experiences between species. The goal is not to make all species identical to humans, Vrexil clarified. It is to learn from their approach to social bonding. Each species will express connection in their own way, but the fundamental principle is the same. Genuine care creates genuine loyalty. The Council debated for several hours. Some members were enthusiastic. Others were skeptical. A few worried that adopting human practices would dilute their own cultural traditions. In the end, the vote passed by a narrow margin. The Federation would study human pack bonding and implement experimental programs based on Vrexil's recommendations. As the council session ended, Ambassador Chen approached Vrexil. He was smiling warmly. "Thank you," he said. "What you did today was important. You gave our species a voice in the Federation's future." "I only reported what I observed," Vrexil replied. "Your species did the rest." David laughed softly. "You know, 6 months ago you were a stranger studying us like laboratory specimens. Now look at you. You're advocating for us in front of the council. You're part of our pack, Vrexil, whether you realize it or not." Vrexil felt that warmth in her chest again. "I am beginning to realize it. It is a strange feeling. My species does not typically form attachments to individuals from other worlds. And yet here you are." "Yes, here I am." They stood together for a moment, watching the council members file out of the chamber. Different species, different biologies, different cultures, all bound together by the Federation's fragile agreements. "Do you think it will work?" Vrexil asked. "Do you think other species can learn to bond like humans do?" David considered the question. "I think the capacity for love exists in all sentient beings. We just call it by different names. Connection, loyalty, belonging, whatever you call it, it's there. You wouldn't have stayed with this research for 6 months if it weren't. You wouldn't have kept that child's drawing. Vrexel touched the research bag where she still carried the rainbow picture. You knew about that. I've been watching you learn, Vrexel, learning to connect with us, learning to care. That's all pack bonding really is, learning that others matter, learning that you're not alone. For the first time in her life, Vrexel did not feel alone. She felt part of something larger, something warm, something strong. Thank you, David. Thank you for being willing to learn. He extended his hand in the human gesture of friendship. Welcome to the pack. Vrexel wrapped a tentacle around his hand and squeezed gently. It was a human gesture that she had learned from observation. It felt natural now. It is good to belong, she said. 5 years after Vrexel's presentation to the council, the Federation had changed dramatically. The exchange programs had sent thousands of citizens to human communities and vice versa. New alliance protocols based on pack bonding principles had been implemented across dozens of worlds. Vrexel now served as the Federation's first director of social integration. Her office was responsible for coordinating interspecies bonding initiatives. It was challenging work, but also deeply rewarding. Her first major success came with the Keithrani, traditionally the most solitary species in the Federation. After implementing human-style community programs on their homeworld, Keithrani birth rates had increased for the first time in centuries. Citizens reported feeling less isolated and more hopeful about the future. It is remarkable, the Keithrani High Speaker told Vrexel during a visit. We always believed that connection was a weakness, that depending on others made us vulnerable, but we were wrong. Connection makes us stronger. Our people are healthier, happier, and more productive than they have been in generations. Similar reports came from other species. The Telari described a cultural renaissance fueled by deeper interpersonal bonds. The Dorini credited their improved relations with neighboring civilizations to the new diplomatic techniques they had learned from humans. But the most significant change came from an unexpected source. The Kraul had been enemies of the Federation for centuries. Their warrior culture valued strength above all else. They saw cooperation as weakness and trust as foolishness. The war at Nexus Point had only deepened their hostility toward humans in particular. But one Kraul commander had been captured during a border skirmish. Her name was Threx, and she was expected to die rather than accept imprisonment. Humans did not treat prisoners like the Kraul expected. They gave her medical care. They fed her well. They spoke to her with respect. And one human guard, a young woman named Maria Santos, started teaching Threx to play chess. "Why do you do this?" Threx demanded one day. "I am your enemy. I have killed your people. You should hate me." Maria shrugged. "You're a person. You're lonely. You're stuck here with nothing to do. It doesn't cost me anything to be kind. And besides, you're actually pretty good at chess." Threx did not understand. She had been raised to view other species as either predators or prey. The concept of kindness to an enemy was beyond her comprehension. But Maria kept coming. Day after day she visited Threx's cell. They played chess. They talked. Maria shared stories about her family, her home, her dreams for the future. Eventually, Threx began sharing her own stories. "I had a mate once," Threx said quietly one evening. "She was killed in battle. I have not spoken of her since her death. It is not our way." "I'm sorry," Maria said. "What was her name?" Threx stared at the human for a long moment. No Kraul had ever asked her that question. It was forbidden to speak the names of the dead. "Varix," Threx whispered. "Her name was Varix." "Tell me about her." And Threx did. For hours she talked about Varix, her courage, her loyalty, her strange habit of singing battle hymns in her sleep. Maria listened to all of it, asking questions and offering comfort. When Threx finished, tears were running down her scarred face. It was the first time she had cried since Varix's death. "Thank you," Threx said. "I did not know I needed to speak of her. I did not know how heavy the silence was until I set it down. Maria reached through the bars and took Threx's massive clawed hand. That's what friends are for. We are friends. I'd like to think so. Threx considered this for a long time. Finally, she nodded. I would like that too. When Threx was eventually released in a prisoner exchange, she returned to crawl space. The High War Council expected her to resume her command and continue fighting. Instead, she requested permission to speak. I have learned something from the humans, she told the assembled commanders. Something important. They are not weak. Their kindness is not foolishness. It is strategy. It is power. They turned me from enemy to friend with nothing but patience and care. If they can do that to a crawl warrior, they can do it to anyone. You have been corrupted, one commander accused. No, I have been awakened. Our way is not wrong, but it is incomplete. We value strength. But there is more than one kind of strength. The humans understand this. Their pack bonding makes them formidable allies and terrifying enemies. We should learn from them, not fight them. The debate that followed shook Crawl society to its foundations. It would take years for the changes to unfold fully, but Threx's testimony planted a seed. Other Crawl who had encountered human kindness began sharing their own stories. A movement started among younger warriors who wanted a different way. Eventually, the Crawl requested formal negotiations with the Federation. It was the first time in their history that they had sought peace rather than conquest. Vrexil was present at the treaty signing. She watched as human and Crawl representatives exchanged traditional greetings. The Crawl ambassador was Threx herself, now speaking for her people as a voice of change. After the ceremony, Threx approached Vrexil. Despite her fearsome appearance, her manner was almost gentle. You are the one who studied human pack bonding, Threx said. I am. Your research changed everything. It gave us the words to understand what we were experiencing. Thank you. I did not do it alone. The humans taught me, and then I passed on what I learned. Threx made a sound that might have been a laugh. That is pack bonding, yes. One teaches another who teaches another. The connections spread. The pack grows larger. Yes, that is exactly it. Then we are pack now, Crawl and human, Crawl and Vraxian, all of us together. It was a simple statement, but its implications were profound. Centuries of warfare ended by acts of kindness. A feared warrior species, transformed by the power of connection. A galaxy that had seemed forever divided, beginning to unite. Vrexil looked around the treaty chamber. Representatives from dozens of species were mingling freely, talking and laughing. She saw David Chen speaking with a Crawl warrior, both of them gesturing animatedly. She saw her assistant Drix playing a game with a group of human children who had come to watch the historic event. In her bag, she still carried the rainbow drawing. It was faded now, worn from years of handling, but she kept it as a reminder of where this journey had started. A small human child giving a gift to a stranger, an act of simple kindness that had helped inspire everything that followed. Director Vrexil, an aide, approached her with a datapad. The Council is requesting your presence. They want to discuss the next phase of integration efforts. Tell them I will be there shortly. Vrexil took one last look at the chamber full of former enemies becoming friends. I want to remember this moment. Of course, Director. Alone for a moment, Vrexil thought about everything that had changed. 5 years ago, she had been a researcher studying a strange alien behavior. Now she was leading an initiative that was transforming galactic civilization. The humans had taught her that everyone belongs somewhere. That family is chosen, not given. That love is the most powerful force in the universe. They had taught her that pack bonding was not just a survival strategy, but a way of life. A philosophy that could bring enemies together and turn strangers into family. Most importantly, they had taught her that she herself was worthy of love, that she could belong, that she was not alone. Vrexil touched the rainbow, drawing one more time. Then she straightened her robes and walked toward the council chamber, ready to continue the work of bringing the galaxy together. Behind her, humans and aliens and former enemies laughed and talked and shared stories. The pack was growing. The Federation was becoming something new, something stronger, something built on love instead of fear. And it had all started because humans could not help caring about everyone they met, even strangers, even enemies, even a lonely Vraxian researcher who did not know she needed a family until she found one. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: the galaxy would never be the same. The humans had shared their gift of connection, and it had changed everything. In the end, that was the true power of pack bonding. Not just the strength it gave to individuals, but the unity it created between species. The walls that had divided the galaxy for millennia were finally coming down, replaced by bridges of understanding and care. And somewhere in the cosmos, Maria Santos was still teaching chess to whoever wanted to learn, one